Ready?
Hold on one second, sir.
Okay. Just tell me when.
Already changed.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Let's call court to order. Today is Thursday, July 9th, 2020. It's 9:01 a.m. Proof of posting, please.
The agenda was posted on Thursday, July 2nd, 2020 at 5 p.m.
Thank you. Let's pause for a moment of silence, and then we'll have a pledge to the flags. But in moment of silence, please reflect on the many folks in the county and community that are seriously ill, and especially some of our folks that work for the county that are in the hospital right now. We pray for their fast recovery and full recovery as well. So I'm going to stand towards the flag and have a brief moment of silence, and then we'll do the pledge. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, one and justice for all. Honor the next is Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Okay, Reagan, if we have anybody registered for public comments? Okay. Anyone in the audience want to make a public comment to the court? If not, we will proceed. Under D, under budgets and budget amendments, transfers and changes, under D1's regarding the FY21 budget, D1. So today we're going to have several presentations. One from Kathy Van Wolf on elections, one for adult probation, Chip Siegman, and then Health Services Department Head Heather Travers, and then a presentation by Dispute Resolution Center, Janet Lyon and Michael Brown. So, Francis?
Yes, sir. So unless there's anything else you need to get out of the way first, and we'll start with Kathy Van Wolf. And for today on the budget workshop drive, there's a folder, and it's titled documents for the July 9th meeting. So there's some documents in there that'll help I think facilitate the discussions today for the people that are available. Is Kathy on?
I am.
So Kathy's department is Department 0410, Elections Administration. Let me share my. Okay. So Kathy, I pulled up your budget. The items that are highlighted are the increases from the prior year. In the end, the increase is really related to an amount that's in there for furniture and equipment, which is $125,000.
Right.
That's related to the booths, the stands that voting equipment would rest on. We have that in there. That could, of course, be lumped into the cost of the actual equipment, but that's just kind of there for discussion purposes. But if you'd like to give some information on the other increases, and maybe starting with the precinct election workers, an increase of $50,000.
Yes, because we are looking at this presidential election. That's the biggest election that we have, and especially this year, I think that the voter turnout will be larger, and because of also the COVID pandemic possibilities still going on during that period of time, we're going to be adding additional workers, more than we've had, not only to assist the voters who will need assistance, because also there's no more straight party tickets. So I think that we'll need more people assisting, we'll need more people cleaning the equipment, more people providing cleanup in between each voter for the COVID-19. And we also will be providing 2 lines at most all of our, definitely all of our early voting sites, but most of our election day sites will also be providing 2 lines for check-in. So we'll need more workers for that as well, because we want to eliminate the lines as much as possible, because we do expect probably a 60 to 70% turnout for this election. As far as the supplies, now I had put into that because of the COVID-19 supplies, but if we use the HAVA grant fund, we might not need that many, but again, it's an estimate, not sure. You know, I know for this election, since we are using most all of our equipment, we will need additional batteries and supplies for that equipment that we don't normally use, because for this election, we're going to be using close to 600 machines. They're going to go out for early voting on Election Day because of the fact that we're going to be running 2 lines at most of our polling places. The furniture and equipment is, again, if, and I can tell you, I believe that the end of life for the current voting equipment that we have is 2024. Now, I put this purchase of new equipment in this budget year only because we are, one thing, we do need to purchase new equipment when we have a constitutional amendment election, so it needs to be purchased at an odd number year, election year, rather than an even number election year, so that we can go through the process of introducing new voting equipment to the voters when there's not people on the ballot, so, and a smaller turnout election. But I believe that the end of life for this equipment that we currently have is 2024. So if you choose not to do it this year, and I realize because of the COVID-19 expenses going on in the county, it may not be a good year to spend $3 million on new voting equipment. So if we do not do that, then we won't have to purchase these booths for that new equipment. The only reason that I put it into this year's budget is because we have approximately $380,000 of the HAVA grant fund that could also go towards the purchase of equipment for this year that we won't have possibly in 2023. But if you don't do it this year, then you will need to do it in 2023. And so the budget is sort of almost everything on here is a need, but the purchase of new voting equipment and this $125,000 for the booth is a want, because, like I said, it needs to be done before either in 2021 or 2023 of the budget year. And the other services and charges, we've had some increases in some of our fees that we're being charged by some Pitney Bowes and some different companies that we use, and so that's the increase there. Software and licensing increase, there's always a 4% charge above what we paid in the past by Hart and Votech. So, and again, the voting equipment, capital expenditures for purchasing of new voting equipment, the bids came in approximately $3 million. So like I said, the $338,000 that we got from HAVA Cares and HAVA Security Funds could be used for that. But if you choose not to purchase the new equipment, then that will be used for COVID-19 and additional part-time staff that we'll need for the 2020 election.
And tell me again the total amount that would go towards the purchase of the equipment, 300 and something thousand?
338,000, approximately, a little bit over that.
Okay.
And those funds, those HAVA, grant funds will go away. One of them, part of it goes away at the end of November, and the other part will go away, in 2021. So there could be something else coming in 2023, but those particular funds won't be available.
Right.
Hey Kathy, I have a question for Francis. The 3.2 million for the equipment and then the 125,000 for the booths, is that something that needs to be bought at the same time, depending on what equipment you go with, or how?
It does. It depends. I think that it's going to depend on what type of equipment we buy, and part of that process will be, I've shown the court both systems that are out there that are certified. I do suggest that the court goes with a duo system, which will be electronic with a paper backup, and I had them both ES&S and HART come to show you those systems. Now, before the purchase actually is made, we'll do much more research as far as, and we've actually gone to some other counties for their elections to see how the voters felt and how the election workers worked for both ES&S and HART's new systems. So we've actually done some of that research, but we will also bring in election workers, the general population, many of community leaders, as well as elected officials and cities and school officials and different organizations throughout the county to look at both systems before a decision will be made on what needs to be purchased. But depending on what needs to be purchased, then that will depend on what type of booth we'll need.
On our existing equipment, have you had any major issues with it in the last?
Well, each time we have a few pieces of the equipment that go down and can't be repaired because HART isn't making that equipment anymore, so they don't have any spare parts to replace if there is a system that goes down. And each election we have some of that equipment that fails. I think it'll be fine if you decide to wait, but you definitely need to do it before 2024. And because the other thing that is happening to us is because HART has a new system that's certified, they're not making any changes at all or updates to the old equipment. So if there is an issue, then some sort of workaround has to be done to be able to make the system work. And all of their equipment was certified at a time when there was a different operating system for Windows, there was different computers that were used, and so even if we needed to upgrade computer, they're not even making the ones that are 2000 computers that some of their systems are running on.
So what kind of extra equipment do you have on hand when you say one or two went down?
We have about 650 machines, and we've never used all of them. So we do have some, that aren't currently being used. But like I said, this election we're going to use close to 600. So we'll still have a few, but it's things like, the boards inside of them, can't be repaired, can't be replaced. The screens don't come up anymore, and they can't be replaced and can't be repaired. So in that case, we just, don't use that piece of equipment anymore.
Right. What kind of experience are they having with the new equipment? Let's just say.
I think it's been pretty good. I can tell you, ES&S had San Antonio Bexar County as their biggest client, and they did have some issues with their reporting package. And to me, that was kind of a red flag, because if your biggest county can't get their system to work, you would think that they would put all the resources into that biggest county to make sure it ran smoothly. And the last election, their reporting package didn't work. As far as when you see our results, we have early voting, election day, and then a total. They had to run 3 different reports, and everybody that was looking at those reports had to manually add those numbers together. And so that was kind of a red flag to me as far as ES&S not working. But those are the only 2 that are really have a system in Texas that's certified. So, you know, it's either hard or ES&S.
Yeah, well, that doesn't make me want to be an early adopter of buying new
Right.
equipment, you know.
Right, and that's the other thing too, is in this presidential election, you will certainly see lots more issues, I think, that will come up as more and more people have bought their new equipment. So it's always, to me, a good idea to wait and see, you know, what happens in other election cycles to make sure that we don't have that same problem when we purchase new equipment, since we are spending that kind of money on equipment.
Right, and having some time for them to use it and modify the software that's needed to fix the problems is a big value to the next buyer, I think.
I agree.
So I'd entertain I lean towards not doing that in this budget cycle, and looking at it the next one, and being sure we've got everything, financial instruments available to fund it for long term. And but I'm very interested in hearing what the other commissioners might think about that.
Right, and that's fine with me. Like I said, I would just do it on an odd number year, not an even number year. And you can certainly purchase it next year and then not roll it out until 2023.
Okay, that's thoughts. Any other thoughts?
If that's the case, then the 338 can be used to offset some of the other increases.
The COVID supplies.
Yes, it can, and also we've for this election, the runoff election, we've actually purchased an additional scanner for our ballot by mail and some screens to be able to project that ballot by mail up when we do our ballot boards. So some of those costs can be used against that grant money. And also, I do expect an increase in ballot by mail for the November election. So some of those will need to purchase supplies for that ballot by mail, and we'll need additional help with the ballot by mail and additional help with the ballot board for ballot by mail. We'll be needing some additional days. So some of those costs can go towards that
Okay,
grant money.
And then you dropped the $125,000
Yes.
piece of equipment. Okay.
Right. Commissioner Jones, you have any thoughts?
Well, whatever. I mean, at some point we're going to have to buy new equipment, whether it's today or in 2 years or a year from now or whatever. I would just, I mean, I'm more inclined to protect the general fund this year, I guess. But I mean, if what we have now is working and it's adequate, then I'm fine with waiting also too.
Okay. Commissioner Miller?
I would agree. I think especially in light of the fact that we have such a important election within the next few months, I wouldn't want to do anything that would greatly impact maybe that process as far as the community being familiar with how we presented elections up to this point. I would wait. I think we need to have aggressive discussions and start looking at prototypes and allowing Kathy to do her research. But I think in this short, concentrated time, I don't think it would be fair to do anything quickly, especially with everything that she has on her plate. So I'd be inclined to wait, but to start discussions.
Okay.
And like I said, you can also, Commissioners and Judge Felton, you can also purchase it next year. That would, that would give you, if you did purchase it in an even number of years, that would give you time to go to all of the events that you could to show it to the public and bring as much of the public in and as much of the officials in to look at it before you'd actually roll it out for an election. And then you could roll it out for either a May election or wait and do it an odd number of year constitutional amendment. So even if you purchased it in 2022, but not rolled it out until the 2023 year for the voters to see it. You'd have time to do your voter education on that process and get everybody on board by either using it during the May election or wait and do it for the 2023 November constitutional amendment election.
Okay, all right.
I have one more. I've thought of something. Has the Elections Commission met or looked at any equipment? And do they have anything in the, do they have any input in the recommendation as to which machine?
They will once we get closer to the purchasing of that equipment, absolutely. Both party chairs have seen both of the equipment, and I think they're both leaning towards the, like I said, the duo, the paper trail with the electronic voting. So, but certainly, yes, all of the election commission and all of the elected officials and cities and school officials, anybody that would come in contact with those elections will also be looking at that as well, and we'll take some feedback from them as to what they like and what they would recommend as well.
And so your $3.2 million figure in capital outlay, that was just an estimate, is that correct?
Right, that's a quote that we got from the party.
Okay, all right.
Okay, with that being said, it sounds like the majority of the court is okay with passing on that. So Francis and Kathy, if y'all will get together and modify this budget request,
Yes.
pulling out the purchase of the equipment as well as the equipment needed to go with it, and then still being able to apply the grant funding to other qualified expenditures. And then I don't think there's any need to represent, just bring it back towards the end, unless someone else has anything else they want to talk about in the budget request.
Yes, and I went ahead and zeroed out that equipment request and then the capital outlay request.
Okay,
And then we'll keep that on our list for an upcoming year. And then other than that, in Kathy's department, before we move on from her, there's just a slight increase in there. It looks like about $700 now. But like you said, I'll get with Kathy, and a lot of those expenses will be able to move out and move to a grant fund.
Okay.
So that'll her operating should not be a net increase there.
all right, okay. All right, thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
I guess next, you want to go to Chip?
Next, we have Janet Lyon with the Dispute Resolution Center. Is anybody?
I think he's just observing.
Okay, just making sure I didn't need to fit anything in.
Oh, you're fine. Okay, I've got to step out a little bit before 10:30,
Yes, sir.
and I wanted to hear Chip's deal.
So Chip, we're gonna have him at 10. Or if he's on, we can get him a little earlier too.
Yeah, I won't
but,
be here.
Oh, you won't be here at 10.
No.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking 10:30. I'm sorry.
Oh,
10:30.
You're right. It is 10:30, so maybe I can hear the first part of it
Okay,
anyway.
okay.
But at that point, I'll step out, and because Commissioner Snell's not here, I think Ben would be the next. He'd be the judge pro tem, and don't stop because I'm out. Just y'all keep going through it, and then I'll come back in when I can.
Well, and hopefully, if we get to the next one quick and Chip's available a little early, we can get that started early.
Great. All right. Good.
Okay. So is Janet Lyon on, or Michael Brown? Do you see those? So Janet Lyon is the new director of the Dispute Resolution Center. So
Right.
she wanted to introduce herself and
Yeah.
tell you a little bit about what they do.
Okay.
We have a dispute resolution fund, and there's a special revenue that goes into that fund, and then that's what's used to pay the contract we have with them.
Okay. Good. And I talked to her and Michael Brown earlier, and so good. I'm glad that we can let her introduce herself to the court. You see him on? Okay. Do we want to go to Heather? Is she available?
Yes, I see Heather's on there, and then Chip as well.
Well, let's go ahead and do Chip. You want to do that? Chip, are you available to present? Is Chip on?
I see him logged in, but
I am.
Okay. All right. We're kind of moving you up a little bit. That's okay.
Oh, that's fine, sir.
Okay. All right. Francis.
so we have Chip Sigmund, the director of the McLennan County CSCD. Again, there's a document with his detailed request that's on the drive. Let me start sharing my screen. So there is a decrease here in their operating request. They did request though a copier for capital outlay, and then there is some other topics that need to be discussed regarding the contracts that we have with adult probation. We have a contract for IT services where we actually charge a portion of our IT department over to the adult probation grant. So they reimburse $31,500 back to the general fund for the services they receive. And then they also, their state grants also cover 2 sheriff's office positions, 75% of those, and those help monitor the activity at that office. So those are just things we needed to touch on today, and then Chip's going to give us some update on some information on their office.
Okay. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Basically, I was going to talk about the supply line since you had it highlighted. We increased that for the projected need for PPEs within the department, since we have so many probationers reporting to the office, and not knowing how the pandemic is going to go and what might happen during the next fiscal year. We wanted to budget for to have enough PPEs. So it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Were there any other questions about the basic budget, Francis, that I needed to go over? Or?
I guess if you want to touch on the need for the copier.
Yes, the copiers are on their last leg over here, and we had a quote from the folks who handle the copiers for leasing 2 copiers versus buying them outright and then and having a maintenance agreement. When you look at the lease versus buying option, once you hit the 4th year, you actually start losing money if you're leasing the copiers. So we're requesting that those 2 machines be purchased out of the capital outlay for the county. That's how Francis explained to me that occurs with such large equipment purchases. And then the repair and maintenance budget actually goes down from what it was last year. And next year when we submit our budget, that of course that there will be no equipment request related to the copiers. That will have been paid this fiscal year.
And so
Does
just,
anybody have any questions regarding that?
That's equipment purchase and the maintenance agreement that goes with that, right?
Correct.
It's all in one.
yes, and like you said, there's the option to lease, but when you calculate what that cost is over the years, it's better to go ahead and pay that up front in a one-time purchase rather than lease it.
Any questions on that?
We had also have some issues with the building that would go through capital outlay and it'll be presented by TJ. But basically the exterior, the interior entranceway cubicle is the enclosed in plexiglass that is scratched and discolored, so it's kind of hard to see through. We're looking to get that replaced with tempered glass. And then the receptionist cubicle in the lobby, the way it's configured, it takes up a great amount of space within the lobby. What we're hoping to do is to take that cubicle out and actually move the receptionist into the portion where the tellers are and make that area actually bigger and able to put 2 people if we need to have them within that area. And it opens up the lobby to allow for us to have more visitors in at any given time. Because there are times, well, before COVID, where we would have standing room only within within the lobby due to the number of people that were reporting. So those are the only 2 things we're looking for on the building. And it's pretty straightforward from what TJ has told us.
Okay.
Something else that we're working with TJ with is possibly an upgraded janitorial service from what we have right now. Due to the number of folks that come through, we do urinalysis here. We have a number of people coming in and using the restrooms, and some of the basic tasks that we need to have done daily aren't getting done under the current folks. So we're working with TJ to see what can be done in that arena. And of course, that isn't under our budget. It's under the county's main budget.
Right.
And that's pretty much the basic budget through the county that I wanted to present today. But I also wanted to present the possibility of whether or not the county would allow for either the partial funding of the specialty courts. When they came online, or they were talking about them coming online last year, when I did the budget, I submitted a memo that indicated that if they don't fully fund these courts, it's going to be an issue with our budget. And of course, they came back and they gave partial funding on the mental health court and the veterans court. Along with that, when I submitted the memo, I indicated to the court that we had 250 or 270 fewer individuals as of the date I wrote the memo on May 15th that were put on probation this year due to the courts basically shutting down when the COVID crisis hit. As of today, we actually had that has increased to 418 fewer individuals placed on probation this year during the time period from March 15th to today. So we have fewer people on the rolls and getting help and getting the assistance that they might need. And of course, our collections are showing that. Unfortunately, fortunately for taxpayers, we rely on about 50% of our basic budget for fees that are collected from the people who are sentenced to probation. And that's always been, it's the way it's always been. And we've never had the issues that we're having right now due to the COVID crisis. So even without the COVID crisis last year, I was going to look at the possibility of the county possibly supplementing the cost that it costs us to run the specialty courts, but now it's compounded itself with what's happened with COVID. I immediately instituted a hiring freeze when the COVID crisis hit. So we had three vacancies when the COVID crisis hit. Since that time, we've had people retire, resign, and go to better paying jobs with the juvenile services, not with the county, with TYC. And we've actually had people resign under disciplinary status. So right now I have 14 total positions open. So I'm able to make up for a great portion of the lost revenue, but that's not something that'll be attainable once we start getting more probationers in, once the courts start running again. And the uncertainty of that is kind of daunting also. So I guess the first question to ask would the court be willing to partially fund the specialty courts? And first and foremost, that's the number one question. And then the second question is, if the court were amenable to this, how you would like to do that, either when each quarter ends, making up for the difference of what our funding allows us toward the court, or maybe forgiving us our contracts that we pay towards services.
And so, what we could do is if that's something that's needed and it comes to that there's not enough funding there to cover their costs, we could move part of their costs related to specialty court over to general fund, kind of like we do this department 2610. We have some things here, so we could move things over into general fund to alleviate their funds in their in the adult probation fund. So that would, I guess, that would be the first option, Chip. And then second, what he was saying, and this is what I was talking about earlier, there are amounts that they contract with the county, adult probation contracts with the county, and they reimburse the county for services that they're receiving. Those being IT services, and then those being security services that help fund SO positions. So those are already expenses that the general fund is those are already there. It's just that they're reimbursing us part of that out of their grant funding and their probation fee funding. So, you know, and those are, I think those come up probably with our fiscal year, those contracts for those. So he's saying if you wanted to forgive those, that would be another way to free up some.
How much money are we talking about?
So the IT services is 31,500, and then the security services for the SO positions is $135,076. So together, that's $166,000.
So, in other words, what we would do would be stop billing them or waive that
Yes.
amount. We absorb it to allow until the courts get back open
Yes.
and, because their revenue source is based on the number of people that parolees that they come through there.
Yes. The adult probation.
Probation, I mean.
The adult probation fund
Yeah.
is, like Chip said, about half probation fees. So those probation fees go directly to that fund to fund their department. And then the other half is state grant funding. Those contract amounts, when you look at general fund, they show up in revenue in general fund. So there's the expenditures that they're tied to, but then there's also revenue. So that revenue, of course, if the contracts were forgiven, that revenue is not there anymore. So it is like almost like an increase in your budget because you don't have that revenue to cover those costs anymore.
Okay. Any questions anybody have for Chip? What I might propose is that we come back to specifically talk about that and what it means to his budget, our budget, within the next couple of budget sessions.
How often are the reimbursements right now?
So
Monthly?
I believe we're doing it quarterly. So we do the financial reports for the grant, for the state grant are due quarterly. So, you know, we make a journal entry in a way to move between the grant and the general fund. And then that gets summed up in the quarterly report that's sent to the state.
Okay. If that's okay, then we'll hold that discussion until we can put it in something everybody can look at and what it means to both budgets. That's all right. Okay, all right.
And one more thing I just wanted to say, it actually counts, the number of people we have on probation right now will determine how much basic funding we receive next year. So it's not only hurting us from the standpoint of collections right now, the number of people we have on probation right now will determine how much funding we receive next year. So it kind of hits us twice.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that's a statewide problem, and
Correct.
that's probably one thing that we need to address with our legislators on that, and see if there's, you know, and all these different reimbursement for losses and those things, maybe that could be covered.
But thank
Francis?
you.
Francis,
Yes, sir.
do you remember if that is in that, the big grant, you know, the one that we were looking at?
CARES grant?
The CARES grant. I can't remember the name. So,
I don't have the document in front of me.
all right.
I think,
I don't believe the CARES Act will allow you to claim lost revenues, from what the governor's office was telling us.
Okay.
you know, I guess if there's additional cost that would be related to COVID, that may, you know, definitely fit in there. But I'll look at that and see. I'll revisit those guidelines.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Chip?
No, I thank you for your consideration. So,
Thank you, sir, and we will be in contact with you. Dustin and Francis and you will put together something to bring back to court. And we'll also, before we bring it back, we'll find out any eligibility that might have under the grant funding of the CARES Act too. So it could be we can offset it with some of those grant revenues. Okay,
Thank you. Thank you very much.
all right. Thank you. Okay, Francis.
Okay. So I think now we can go back to the Dispute Resolution Center representatives. We have Janet Lyons and Michael Brown.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are y'all today?
We're good. Janet, do you have your mic on? Janet, are you muted? Can you hear us? There, I think you're.
Janet, can you hear us?
Let's see. Sorry about this, guys.
All right.
We're all improvising
World of Zoom.
in technology, you know?
Yeah.
Let me see if I can call her real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Michael.
Hey, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
No, I can't hear anybody.
Okay. Do you make sure your speakers are turned on?
Yeah, I'll check, but I was using it yesterday.
Is
I had this problem in the past. And it looks to me like everybody is muted.
Well,
except-
you and I are live. Our mics are not muted. We can hear you talking, but you can't hear us apparently.
ask her to check the volume on her device and see if it's turned down.
No, you're muted. Can you check the volume on your device? Make sure it's.
Heck of a note when I'm giving advice on how to.
Sorry, guys. Bear with us.
Hey, we're used to this. This is
Yeah, I know. Let's see, if you click on the up arrow next to the mute button, you should have select a speaker. Do you see that? Your microphone select, but you also can select your speakers down below that. Does it show one of them checked on that list? Ooh. So you see select a microphone and select a speaker, but you don't see any speakers. You want to switch to phone audio? So if you go back to the meeting invite, there's a call-in number where you can call in just on audio. You might do that and leave your camera up and mute your phone. And mute your. Okay. Pull it up. Yeah, just, yeah, do that one. Yeah, on your cell phone. And then you'll be entered in the meeting, and then I would leave your computer connected and turn your camera back on. And your audio is just going to come through your phone. All right, guys, we're improvising here.
Okay.
I could start something else, but then I'm scared if I do, then we won't be able to tell if that's working.
Yeah. Let's give it another minute. Two.
Yeah, I'm here.
Michael's with James Rittmeyer, Boyd there.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay.
That's okay. That's okay. Okay, yeah, no problem. I'm gonna hang up with you now. Okay. I'm gonna take over because we're having technology issues. Janet can't hear us. We can hear her. But it's strange because DRC has been doing Zoom mediation, so it usually has been working without problems, but we're having technology problem. So what we wanted to do today was to, number one, introduce you to Janet. She is the new executive director of the DRC. Donna Phillips had led the DRC for several years, and she became ill and had to retire. And so I'm a member of the board of the DRC. I've been on the board for about 8 years. I'm Michael Brown. I'm a CPA. I'm a partner at JRBT accounting firm. And we did a search for a new executive director and found Janet down in Victoria, and she really relocated to take the position. But the purpose of today really is just to help inform the Commissioners Court, the commissioners, of what the DRC does, that we have a new director, and to talk about our relationship with the county and answer any questions y'all have. I don't know in my tenure with the DRC board that we've ever really had any FaceTime with the commissioners. I know that Donna met with Judge Felton a time or two, but we are a county budget item, and out of the general fund, and then also out of the special revenue fund for the ADR fund, a recipient of those funds. But primarily what we do, is provide low-cost mediation services for individuals in cases where it's not economically feasible for those people to hire a private mediator. And we have staff that actually perform those mediations, and we also rely pretty heavily on volunteer mediators who are also those, are 100% are those professional mediators, but they're donating their pro bono time to provide mediation services through the DRC, through the nonprofit. One of our big, or a substantial component of our caseload are CPS mediations. And as you all know, CPS is a tough deal. It's a difficult thing. Those cases are difficult to resolve. And when they get tied up in the court system, it can become very lengthy. And since the county is providing a lot of times the representation for multiple parties in CPS cases, it can become very costly to the county. Those CPS cases get referred to us for mediation, and often we can resolve those cases in a quicker, more economical fashion for the county, because the CPS cases often involve, multiple parties, multiple children, multiple sets of parents in one case. It can, and so the county is duplicating its cost in representation of those parties. So, as far as funding goes, out of the general fund, we receive $36,500 out of the general fund that subsidizes somewhat the cost of providing those CPS mediation services. And then out of the ADR fund, right now our contract is $54,000 a year. And that fund has been collecting a bit more than that, and it's kind of accumulated a balance. And I'm sure our county auditor can speak to that a little more clearly than even I could. So in addition to the CPS cases, we handle family law cases, and we do some civil type cases. But the CPS cases, and I know Janet had facts and figures prepared for y'all, but I believe it accounts between 40, 45, or 50% of our caseload. That's pretty much what I have for you right now. Do y'all have questions about what we do, or anything I can help give you an idea of what's going on with the DRC?
Any questions? I know it provides a very, very critical service that we need, and as noted, CPS cases are rising due for a lot of reasons. One is our population is going up, but I think there's other reasons as well, demographics and those things that are happening. I'm sure. But are there any questions from the commissioners?
Thank you.
Okay. Well, we appreciate your presentation and the time you spent this morning. And we are in the budgeting process, and so we will. The presentation is helpful for us to make decisions on going forward.
Sure. And one last thing I do want to mention is that because of COVID, initially we saw a drop in services because the legal system kind of froze up there for a bit, but we have adapted and gone to Zoom mediations and found those to be very successful in most cases. But we're also kind of steeling ourselves up for when the legal system starts turning at a better pace in the future, that we're expecting a kind of a deluge and a flood of cases. And so we want to be ready for that. So we're trying to prepare ourselves as best we can. Always with any nonprofit, more money is always helpful. And I think a potential source of that might be that ADR fund that has accumulated some balance. So maybe we need to look into that and talk about that contract with respect to that special revenue fund. So anyways, that's about it.
Right. And I think there's no doubt that there's a flood building up behind this thing, and a lot of these proceedings have been halted in those things. So. Right.
We just want to be as prepared as we can. We appreciate all y'all's hard work, and I know the budgeting process is never a fun thing to do. It's a necessary evil, but we appreciate y'all putting the time and doing the hard work here.
Thank you, and tell Janet we're sorry. She was not able to get on, but feel free to stop by and see any of the commissioners. And
sure.
Office
and I'll apologize on her behalf. I guarantee you she's devastated right now that she was not able to.
I'll tell her no problem. We have these issues almost daily. So, all right. Thank you very much.
Thank y'all. Appreciate your help.
All right. Okay, Francis, you don't have.
So we had Heather next. We're running ahead of schedule, which is really good. I wanted to just bring something up real quick before we move on to her, just to kind of show you where we stand. Let me share my screen. So this is something we had looked at earlier in the week. But that top yellow box is the current preliminary no new revenue rate, that 0.467891. Actually, today we should have some revised preliminary numbers and rates and values. So by the next time we meet, we'll have that adjusted a little bit. But then, right under there, that 47 million, that's where we think we're going to begin the year next year. Moving down the revenue section, that is with the no new revenue rate. And then that expenditure section, that number, that 121 million, that is as of now, any decisions you've made. So we backed out the voting equipment earlier. That actually has the 1.75 million that we added for the bridges yesterday. I know we may not want to fund that out of general fund, but just for discussion, we stuck that there. So that has that in there. And then we've been getting cuts that you asked departments to make. We have a handful of those to upload. We just haven't had a chance to yet. So that has everything in there up to this point. That 121 million, that's about a 2.3 million increase from the prior year. Just looking at expenditures to expenditures. And then of course, like I said, that bridge funding is in there. So that makes up a big portion of the increase. So it's
Just quickly on that. Is there a consensus that it should be out of the general fund, or did we have a consensus more likely that it should
yeah,
take it out of the
The
general fund?
consensus is more likely not to take it
yes,
out.
Yeah.
So
yes.
I think we'll probably, because our bond language is broad enough that we can, and it qualifies.
Mhm, mhm.
And so I think that there shouldn't be a problem about this 2021. And that'll give us time whenever we're looking at what we need for long-term financing. As we get into next year, we'll add the additional costs that Zane was talking about, his estimations and what years they'll come in, and we'll be able to lay that in those bond, whenever we issue a bonds, to be sure we include those. I mean, they gotta be done.
Yes.
And it's just, it's not if, it's when. And so when is gonna
I
tell
know
us.
I've got one of them. It's got to be done this coming budget year,
Yeah, okay.
and that's $500,000. But yeah, I understand why you put it there. But
Yeah,
I was
it's just
thinking the
for
consensus was
discussion.
to go ahead and
Yes,
take it out.
I'm gonna go ahead and move it out. Let's see if this kind of changes it to. Sorry to break in with this. I just wanted to catch for the judge. Put it out. And say back to it. Okay, so then that brings that down. Then now you'll see the expenditures there at the 120.1. And so that's where we're at as of today. That next section, that 1.6 million, section right here, those are all the personnel requests, whether they be new personnel or salary increases. And a lot of those you heard about yesterday with the sheriff's office. So then that, of course, you'll make decisions on those, but just plugging the whole amount in, that brings you to a bottom line fund balance of that 41.2 million right there.
Okay.
And like I said, a lot of decisions still have to be made, but just up to this point, we're just whittling away at the pieces of it. So that's where we stand as of today.
Okay.
Okay. So Heather Travers is with us.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. How's everybody?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Good. Francis, do you need me to start, or I've not ever done it before, so.
Just
Can y'all hear?
can't hear me.
Just be sure you're talking in.
Sorry.
That's it.
Okay, indigent healthcare is Department 4310. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay. So she actually didn't make any changes to her budget for next year. The increase is the increases for the public health district, which goes up for the contract. And then the other increases for the family health care center. And y'all discussed that on Tuesday and made a decision to increase that. It was about a $13,000 increase. So those are her two increases. But she would like to give you some information on her plan for the budget for the rest of this year and then going forward into next year.
Okay.
So we thought this would be a good time. I'm gonna pull up her document.
Okay, and so I had never prepared a budget and was just honestly kind of winging it this year. So what I did, since I just really don't have a whole lot of history managing the department to draw too many conclusions, is I just left the budget line items exactly the way they were. But I wanted to discuss with you all kind of a vision or an idea that I had for the next fiscal year. So what I did is I took the previous 2 years, FY 18 and 19, and just kind of looked at some basic information. The approved budget for each year was pretty similar. Now in 18 and 19, that was paid into the waiver program. And then beginning this year, it was allocated differently. Looking at past reports, I see that the claims paid in the previous years are kind of in line with where we are now. The average number of clients has decreased. It looks like in 18, the average number of clients we had was about 350, and then that went down to less than 319, and now we're averaging about 256. And I don't actually know the number we have today, but it's less than that. Then I looked at kind of the average amount of expenditures we have per client. And that's where those figures, the 4496.50 for 18 and 5630 for 19, and now 5143 this year. And then I looked at the number of clients that max out at the 30,000 per year. And as you can see, that number is very low. I anticipated it would be around 10%, and it's not. So then I kind of looked at how many clients came through our department, how many applications we've approved, why we're denying applications, just to kind of get a vision for where we could go from here. Because it's my impression that we might be underserving. And so I'm kind of taking a look at barriers to that. What are the reasons why? So going into FY21, can you scoot that up, Francis? So I'm kind of requesting that we keep our budget intact just to give me another year of working with outreach and re-educating the community on the program. And so if we go into the next year, FY21, with the same allocated budget, the 3.6 million, I'm estimating that we could serve approximately up to 375 clients. And that's with 20 of those maxing out at 30 and the remaining averaging around 8,000, which you can see in previous years, we've never averaged around 8,000, but I am noticing that healthcare costs are increasing, and I'm wondering if there's going to be additional increase as a result of COVID. So I just overly estimated, but just basic projections looks like we could be serving a significantly more amount of folks. And I know in previous years, we've served 600-700 clients. So my proposal is that we continue with our outreach, that we get out in the community and we secure some alternate enrollment sites. And those will just be locations that we set up remotely, and clients can actually come and apply for services on site there versus coming all the way into Waco, kind of our rural areas. I want to utilize paid postage return. So when we're mailing out these applications for recertification and such, we're actually including a stamped envelope in there that they can then return that information back to us. And then, as I've mentioned before, I'd really like to implement a bus pass program. I've kind of put some cost associated with that in there and kind of a breakdown of the bus system and the cost. And just those are rough numbers of passes that I'm predicting that we might fund. And as you can see, it's a really insignificant amount of the budget, but would have a huge impact on accessibility for our community to access services. What I'd like to do is start our next year budget intact the way it is, but use some of this year's additional funds that will be potentially left over to pre-purchase the bus passes and postage and some of the supplies and such that we'll need for the alternate enrollment sites and outreach. So that's kind of where my brain is going on this.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense if you've got budget available, and those expenditures qualify for in the categories that were budgeted, then
Are you still there?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I think
I can hear you too.
Francis, can you
We
take
lost
that?
audio from the courtroom.
I think we've lost audio from the courtroom, yeah.
Yeah.
And I can't see anything when this is up. So,
So go to the top, you see view options.
no, I'm on my daughter's iPad and I'm not super.
Oh, I don't know
so-
that one then.
Well, I had it on the screen to where I could see all the different blocks, but then when she puts oh, there we're back. There we go. Okay. Can you hear us?
Can-
Nope, they're
We
muted.
can't hear you.
Reagan just the computer shut down, so they're having to restart.
Okay.
I'm gonna break.
No
Coffee.
fair. No fair.
ask her and ask the court if they're okay with adjourning.
We should be back.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Miller, were you fixing to ask a question, or make a statement? Or did
No.
I just,
No, this time I'm gonna surprise you. I was not.
okay. Okay. All right, any questions, anything else, Heather?
Yeah, I think when we all disappeared, we were just saying, that, Heather, it sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
A good approach to growing your client base.
Great.
Yeah, I like more utilization of the public transit. And then also the approach of outreach into other areas of the community. You know, our job is to find the people that qualify for this help and be sure we take care of it, because we know other problems happen when they don't have that security or helping hand in there.
Mhm. And if you are familiar with locations that would be open and willing to have us come remotely, share that with me. I have a few ideas. I didn't want to start making connections until, I kind of had approval to move forward with that. But if, you have a location or you have a relationship out there and they wouldn't mind having us come remotely and they have a space for us and, yeah, let us know.
Okay.
I will get with you. I've got a great location for you.
I do too.
Good, great,
And
okay.
we need to keep these people out of the emergency rooms.
Yes,
That's what's most important.
absolutely. And Francis, you might chime in on this. So I had been working with IT to put together a kind of bid proposal. I'm not sure the lingo that you guys all use, but to purchase the equipment to be remote. Well, then we kind of had to expedite that due to our office having to work remote. So IT has gone ahead and purchased the 2 laptops that we were gonna purchase with these funds. But I believe they were used out of an emergency fund, Francis, do you know? So is that something that we need to redirect out of our budget or leave out of the emergency fund, or how does that work?
They're in the normal operating budget, all the COVID related emergency expenditures, and they're tagged. And so then as soon as we can connect them to a grant, we will move them out of the general fund and into a grant fund to match those up. Just a lot of discussion though, and things still happening before we know that, but they are in there. It's just that we've allowed them to be, it's a little different. It's in your budget, but it is tagged. So it's a little bit separate. So right now it's sitting there. You'll see it, but it shouldn't affect your budget that you already had.
Okay, because I knew I had done an approval, but I wasn't quite sure how that was, yeah, okay. We can talk about that later, but that was part of the proposal today. Some of that expenditures was we've already purchased, I guess is where I was going with that. So it wouldn't be in addition to.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
All right. Francis, what else?
So I have some other things we can go through. We don't have anybody else that's going to join us, but I could go through some things if everybody has time.
Okay, let me, I'm gonna have to step out for a WebMec meeting, and Commissioner Perry will take over, and then y'all be thinking about what you want to do next, and whether we adjourn today or we recess today, and if we have anything else tomorrow. But I don't have anything else, but whatever the court thinks.
You're leaving us now.
Yes,
All right.
I'm gone.
Francis, you want to continue?
Yes, sir. So I wanted to look at some items in Department 5490. And this is our contracted programs department. So a couple of the things at the top, the city of Waco, they're connected to the city of Waco. So they're of course in the same process we are. So if we can go in and let them know that there's a consensus that we're good with these numbers, then we can let them know that, and that'll help them along. So first I just want to, and we'll change these as we go along. The civil defense emergency management, that's our emergency management department. So the city of Waco, they set the budget, and this is, let me pull it up. It's also on the drive. It's easier for you to look at. Okay, so like I said, this is on the drive. It's the emergency management request. This is actually a drop from last year. I believe about a $17,000 drop in their total budget. So you'll see there, their total budget is the $712,000. So then what happens is the state will reimburse them for a portion of it, and then the county and the city half the rest. And they bill us quarterly. They take care of all the expenditures and just bill us. So based on, it's hard to tell what the total is that the state will reimburse us, but we can look at historical percentages. We are looking at the county portion being a little over 320,000.
What's that on?
It's a reimbursement grant that goes.
Is that the same? So it's this, is the 324,810, is that the,
So that was, I just got these some final numbers yesterday, so I'm gonna.
okay.
So sorry about that. But so that number here, if hope y'all can see that, that 325.33, that would, it's a little bit, like I said, a drop from last year, but that would be the estimate of the county's portion for next year. So if there's a consensus on that, that is good.
After the grant, correct?
Correct. And they will only, you know,
That's a decrease, right?
correct. And so as each quarter rolls on, they only bill us for their actual expenditures. So of course, if they come under budget, you know, our cost will be a little bit less than that.
Yeah, that's good news.
That's fine.
Mhm.
Sorry, y'all bear with me. Okay. Next on the list, we have the OSSF services budget. So this again is connected to the city of Waco. This is our on-site sewage facility program. So, and again, I'll bring up their budget as well. The city puts the budget together, they fund the expenditures, they estimate what the revenue, what the fees, the charges for the septic permits that come in, they back that off, and then we're liable for the remainder. And I've got to pull it up. So again, this, sorry, it's a little bit going slow, but this is the budget that the city prepared for us. And at the top, they have the revenues that would come in. So they have that top line is what they're asking for from us, the $85,335. And then they've estimated what they think that they will bring in permit fees. And then they have their expenditures, which the net is 0.
Compared to last year, what is that?
So compared to last year, so last year we were looking at 87,671, and then this year our portion would be 85,335. So a small drop there, and that just depends, like I said, on the estimated revenues. You'll see that every year we budget this, and if you look there at that projected, I messed this number up earlier, but we're really only projecting to spend about 15,000 this year, and that's because if the permit fees come in higher than they expected, they're not going to. That's gonna take care of a lot of those expenditures. Okay. So these reports are on the agenda once a month. The city of Waco sends those over, and a lot of times we'll just have a credit balance until we get to the end of the year. So if there's any thoughts on that, if not, I'll plug in that $85,335 number there.
Anyone have any comments?
No.
Looks good.
Okay. So we'll let the city know. I'm going to go ahead and highlight these. You've had some short discussions on the library budget. That was on a previous agenda. I think there was a consensus that was okay at this time. Of course, that can always be revisited. But that there is a slight increase there to the $933,464.
I don't think there was any dissent to that. Guys, y'all remember? I don't remember any dissent to that.
There was one, but wasn't me.
Wasn't me either.
Looks good.
Okay. And then.
Hey, Ben.
Yes, sir.
And Francis. do we want to maybe look at increasing those, since we are, being requested by the city to increase, do we want to look at increasing the rural libraries just a little bit, maybe?
You know what? I wouldn't have a problem with it. Would you mind if we waited and kind of came back at the end when we knew what kind of money we might have to work with?
I mean, I'm just talking, like $500
Okay.
really goes a long way for these places, for those smaller libraries. So,
Commissioner Miller?
but we can wait.
I wouldn't have a problem with it.
Okay. You're talking 500 across the board, Commissioner?
Yes.
Okay.
Moving those up.
Let's take a
And
look.
just historically, through 2018, we were funding each at 5,000, and in the last 2 years, we bumped that up to 7,500. So just a little history. I'm gonna increase these.
Thank you.
And you are correct. In a small rural setting like that, $500 does go a long way with a
Yep.
library.
Okay, so moving on to this fire protection services line, it's tied in a way to emergency management. That number, and it's been the same for the last few years. There hasn't been changes made, but each department receives $5,800 and then $32 per square mile for their service area that includes an unincorporated area. So those are calculated, and then those are dispersed to each department, each volunteer department. That number also includes $9,500, which goes to the Fire Protection Association, and they use that for training purposes.
Yeah, recall that. So
So there's I haven't had any
no request.
request to increase there. So that's the same there.
You guys good with that?
Mm-hmm.
The next line, no change. This is our animal shelter services, and this is what we're charged per animal that's picked up outside city limits. And if you look back, that number has dropped dramatically over the year, and I know that has a lot to do with the other entities that y'all help fund. But I think keeping the 15,000 there is
Adequate.
for next year.
Okay.
Next, we have the aging program planning. So that is with Hot Cog, and that is, it's for the Area Agency on Aging. So they use this money that we give them, and from other counties, they're able to receive other grant funding that matches these amounts, and then they use that to help out senior citizens in the area. So that's provided to Hot Cog every year. And that, again, been the same for a long time, and we haven't received any requests for any increases there.
Okay. Everybody good?
I am. I just wanted to interject this. I'm not asking for any type of increase. I heard that she said they haven't requested one, but I just wanted to note, I guess about 2 months ago, right in the heat of when COVID-19 hit the community, the area program on aging, they sponsored a food distribution. That was that food distribution that we did where we took over 30 boxes of food to senior citizens in the rural area.
Right.
So that was the first time I'd really up close and personal participate in one of their programs. But I thought that was an outstanding effort. And I do know that they have plans to do more programs like that, especially as the community is struggling under COVID-19.
And Commissioner, I will point out real quickly too, not that we have a crowd here, but that's the one that all the precinct barns participated in, correct?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Everybody good?
I even got to take some, I even went to a few of the people's homes. They were very appreciative, all of them.
It was hot out there, wasn't it? I
It was
know.
hot. And our guys had masks and gloves and all that on, so.
Yeah, it was worth it, but it was hot.
It was,
Safety first. But All right, our next one.
So we have the Crime Stoppers line. Again, we contribute the $10,000 every year to that program. The next one, and there's 3 lines in this department that are related to MHMR. There's also another line item that shows up in jail medical. These are all contracts we have with MHMR and what we've agreed to fund in the past. I think there will be some discussion probably with the MHMR director sometime later this month, where maybe he can give y'all some updates on how those are going and then what our new contracts will look like for next year. But right now we just have plugged in what the past year contract amounts were. The next one, this one was I believe new last year. So this is the Meals on Wheels. No, this wasn't new last year. Back up. This one is the Meals on Wheels program, and so we increased it last year to $25,000.
Could I interject something quickly? And I know we need to wait for the whole court to be here as we continue to maybe make adjustments to requests. I know last year they had asked for $30,000, and we were currently budgeting them at $20,000, and so we kind of split the difference and increased it by 5. But based on a lot of information that I'm reading, seniors are really being hit hard economically at this time. And I just want to put out there that maybe we could look at increasing them to that $30,000 going into next year, because they do provide a meal that a lot of seniors really look forward to on a daily basis. And so just kind of food for thought as we get into the budget work session discussions, if we could look at raising that level to the request that they asked for last year.
I agree, Commissioner.
You can put a reminder on that, Francis, and we can come back and address that.
Thank you.
The next line down, the animal shelter project. So last year was our last year of funding that project. It was a 5-year, $50,000 a year, $250 total to the animal shelter for their renovations. The next 2 are MHMR. Like I said, those are just based on the current contracts, and there'll be some discussions on what those contracts need to be for the next year. The Cove and animal birth control, those are both, based on requests that we received in the past. And I haven't heard anything as of yet, but I'm sure that we'll have someone able to speak on those if they choose to give you some information. You can make a decision on those. The outside repair and maintenance water control structures. So this is the funding that we give to the McLean County Soil and Water Conservation Board for upkeep of the dams. So again, the same amount as last year, and we haven't received a request to increase that amount. I know these kind of running through these fast, but just to give you an idea of what these look like, it'll let me know too what y'all need some more information on. So we'll come back to that. The Meals on Wheels line, the MHMR, and then as information on requests from outside entities come in, we'll fill y'all in on those. Okay. Let's see. I wanted to give you an update. Y'all had asked for departments that had an increase in their operating budget to cut it, if they could, down to be equal or less than last year. And we've had a lot of departments do that very quickly. That was just just a couple days ago. So I know those will trickle in before next Tuesday. But we've seen good response there. And we'll have all those changes uploaded before next Tuesday.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and then also next Tuesday, we'll also have some updated, I think I said this earlier, some updated preliminary rates and preliminary appraised values, just to get us closer to what our ending certified values will be.
Okay. Anything else you want to tackle?
So I really don't. Next week, and if y'all do, y'all let me know, and okay, we can talk about anything y'all need to. Next week, starting Tuesday, we'll meet at Tuesday at 9 o'clock. And that morning, we're hoping to get IT done. So that will include Lisa Fetch and her budget, and most importantly, the IT assessment portion of that. So we always go through that list, and she'll let us know the needs for next year. And then also that morning, TJ Jackson will be here, and we'll talk about permanent improvement projects. We'll look at the permanent improvement fund as well as the bond funds that we're sitting on right now, and how that all plays together, what our balances are, and what's needed for next year. And then starting after lunch that day, our plan is Amanda will be available, and we will start into the personnel discussions. So look at those requests and get some information from her on that, as well as we can have discussions on incentive pay, COLA, if that's something you want to talk about, other programs, bilingual pay, step pay. So we'll start that Tuesday after lunch. I envision that it will go over into Wednesday, but next Wednesday we will be able to meet all day. The judge is available that morning. So I really am hoping that between Tuesday and Wednesday, we can get through almost all of the requests that we have in front of us that we need to go through.
And that'll be both personnel requests and then pay raise requests.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then that still gives us, I know there's some out the end of next week, so that would be good to get all that done Tuesday and Wednesday, so that no one's missing that. And then that gives us the rest of that week plus the week following to really to pick anything else apart that y'all like to or to bring people in if you need to.
And then the proposed date is?
That is July the 28th, Tuesday, July 28th. So that day you will we'll vote on a proposed or propose a tax rate and then file the proposed budget. So that will start your timelines. We'll give the citizens the opportunity to come in and speak on those two pieces. And then we will adopt the last Tuesday in August.
Do either one of you think there's anything we need to come back after lunch for?
I don't have anything.
I don't either, Ben. I will add that, and just remind everybody, we're planning on Tuesday, the 21st, our next regular meeting, to have the recommendation on the TPA and for the health plan, and also financials on the health plan also too at that time.
Fantastic.
And we'll have on that same agenda have a monthly report through June, the end of June as well. So
okay.
Something else. If we're not meeting till Tuesday, until then, if there's anything y'all think of that y'all would like more information on, historical information, trends, please just let us know and we can have all that ready to go for you on Tuesday.
Okay. Anything else come before the court?
We're saying we're not coming back tomorrow?
Right now, there's not a need to, unless it comes up. So.
Okay.
And so if there's not, we're going to go ahead and adjourn instead of recess. So if there's nothing else to come before the court today, and we feel comfortable with not meeting tomorrow, and I don't hear any objections to that, we'll go ahead and adjourn at this time. Thank you, guys.
Good job.
Great. Great job, everybody. Great job to IT.
I think it was nice today. That was on the user again.